Summer nutrition hacks. We're going to talk about how you can look great in a short period of time because, of course, it's summer by the time this episode releases. So we're going to give you some tricks, tips, and hacks to look your best.
What does our runway look like? What kind of time frame we have right now?
You've got a little bit of time. So the context here,
it's here, man.
is the context is aesthetics and what would be more effective in the short term. Typically, we don't communicate this way. We're very long-term minded. I mean, again, we were trainers and coaches for 2 decades. So keep in mind what we're going to communicate today is, yes, burn body fat. Yes, improve your fitness. We're going to talk about those things as well, but also just the aesthetic. Like, how can I look like I'm the leanest in the kind of shortest period of time? And that's the context of kind of where we're going here with nutrition.
So we're going to
topic.
Assume we have good relationships with exercise and nutrition, healthy place metabolically, and so I think that we're just gonna go from there, right? Because obviously, trying to talk to the average person who is at a place where their metabolism is extremely slow, they need to revert. There's a lot of other things that they need to do.
And if you need to lose like 40 pounds, like you're too late, right? Like, although some of this stuff might be valuable, it takes a lot longer than like now till get ready for summer. But for people who have some, a little bit of weight to lose and they want to look really good in a month or two, these tips will definitely serve you.
So let me hear your first one. What's your first go-to move?
Go low carb. Now, the studies on low carb, and I will communicate kind of our experience on this, but low carbohydrate diets don't cause more fat loss than comparable diets where the calories are controlled and the protein is high. And we'll get to protein next. But they do show more weight loss initially, and more of that weight is coming from water. This is a trick bodybuilders have used for years to appear leaner than they are, because getting water out of your body, especially if you strength train along with it, will give you the appearance of looking leaner. You'll be drier. You'll have less under your skin, and it gives you a leaner appearance than you actually may be.
I think this is a really good strategy, especially if you've actually never really done it.
Right.
So I remember the first time that most of my life, matter of fact, I remember when we were in this podcast. So up until that point, I had never even attempted low carb. In fact, I remember, I believe it was you who was reading a lot of research on the ketogenic diet and the benefits of that. And I remember I had just came off of competing the year before, and I was like, my metabolism was through the roof. I was eating 600 grams of carbs, and I was like, why the hell would I get rid of carbohydrates? It allows all this flexibility. I thought, but you know what? I've never challenged myself to do that. And I tell you what, man, going really low carb if you've never, or cutting carbs when you've never attempted to really cut carbs, was a quick recipe for me to lean out quick.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a great strategy. And most competitors, this is the kind of what they do. Like, a lot of competitors don't track calories, they track macros, and carbohydrates are the primary one they manipulate.
Yes.
So they keep the same protein. They don't really talk about calories, and they really just manipulate carbohydrates to get them to their goal. So it is a very effective strategy if someone's never used it before.
Yeah, plus you're a little more satiated that way when you're more focused on protein and fats.
Yes.
And so you don't tend to overeat quite as much.
Yeah, no, the studies on this show this as well. At least in the short term, you get this, like the first 3 months or so, you get this really strong appetite suppression by cutting carbohydrates and eating more fats and more proteins. So they're just more satiating. By the way, the reason why you can cut carbohydrates to zero is because they're not essential. Yep. Now, this doesn't mean it's necessarily ideal for everything, like athletic performance or even long-term success, because it is a bit extreme. It is something you can cut out entirely. And it's easy to do.
In the short term,
it's one easy step people can do, right? Don't eat carbohydrates, right? What am I not eating? I'm not eating starches. I'm not eating breads pastas. I'm not drinking juices. I'm avoiding even fruit, right? Because those have carbohydrates.
Definitely alcohol.
Yeah, alcohol is out of it as well. Maybe save that just for the summer parties.
Yes.
But you cut those out, and your body is okay. You're going to survive on proteins and fats, because proteins and fats are essential. And also what happens, and the reason why you get more weight loss with a low-carb diet, not necessarily fat loss, but more weight loss, is because when you cut carbohydrates out, it sucks water out of your body. I mean, I'll give myself an example. I walk around anywhere between 218 to 221 pounds, okay? If I went zero carb, and I do this relatively regularly, but I do it for different reasons. I do it because I feel sharper when I do this. So if I'm going to go on a podcast circuit or something like that, I'll do this. But if I cut carbohydrates down to 0, within a week, I'm going to drop 8 pounds. Now, it ain't body fat, but it's 8 pounds of water. And I definitely will appear to be a bit leaner because when you have less water, you're leaner. By the way, this doesn't work if you have a lot of body fat. But if your body fat, you got 10 pounds to lose, like losing that water can make you look leaner, especially if you're a female in a bikini.
A generic strategy to kind of test this that like anybody can do, because you're going to have a lot of people that are at all different levels here as far as their calories and their macros and where their carbs are at, is track and see what a normal day of carbohydrates are. Then that would be considered now your high day. Then go 50% of that would be your midday, and then 50% of that would be your low day. And you could cycle like that. So you don't have to go overcomplicate this. Stick the protein to whatever you're supposed to, and then literally just manipulate the carbohydrates like that. And that will create enough of an organic calorie deficit that you will lean out. That's easy strategy to reduce carbs without just going no carbs also.
Yeah, that's carb cycling, and bodybuilders are really good at that. But to make it simple too, you can go just, I'm not eating carbohydrates. I'm eating everything else, but I'm not eating carbohydrates. And in a relatively short period of time, you'll lose some body fat because it's going to cause a deficit. You get some appetite suppression. It'll suck water out of your body. I mean, again, this is something that, let's say somebody's already lean, and in a week they're going to be at the beach. And I mean, how much body fat can you lose in a week? 1 pound, 2 pounds? But they want to look significantly leaner. Cutting carbs out. Cutting carbs out will do that for
a bloated water buffalo like me. It helps.
That's right. Yeah. And so the aesthetic, effects can be a bit pronounced, especially in the short term.
So that's carbohydrates. Next thing would be, I imagine, protein, then being consistent with that, right?
Oh yeah,
high protein, which would be 1 to 1.5 grams per body weight.
Per pound of body weight, yeah, per pound of target body weight. So if your goal body weight is 130 pounds, 130 grams to 150 grams of protein a day. Eat it first. Now, the studies on this are pretty amazing, okay? So bodybuilders have known this for a long time. High protein diet does build more muscle, but it also results in more fat loss. So when you look at calorie-controlled diets and they compare them, one group, normal protein, the other group, high protein, same calories. So essentially, same energy intake. The high protein group is leaner. They actually get leaner. They lose more body fat. And of course, if they're strength training, they'll build more muscle. There's a lot of speculation as to why. The ones that I think are most relevant or probably most accurate is protein leads to muscle growth. So maybe some more of those calories are getting partitioned to building muscle, which has this kind of metabolic effect. The other is that protein has a higher thermic effect than carbohydrates or fats. In other words, a gram of protein requires more energy to process than a gram of carbohydrates or fats. So, or especially in a calorie-controlled fat versus carbohydrates and proteins. In other words, 50 grams of protein burns a little bit more calories than the same amount of calories from fats or carbohydrates.
I will add this to this recommendation because we are recommending a low carb, no carb, or some sort of a carb cycle. So reducing that, making sure you're hitting your protein intake, and since that becomes the primary focus in a diet like this, to prep is huge help. Having protein ready. This is
protein's hard to find.
It's very difficult. And so if you think on a whim every day, you're just going to go find your daily intake in protein while also not eating carbohydrates. Yeah. Good luck. You're going to find, and so that's a quick recipe to fail on this strategy is to not be prepared. So cooking chicken thighs and steaks. Now what's great is because you're going low carb, you can enjoy higher fat meats like the tri-tips and the ribeyes and things like that and be actually okay. But make sure you prep meat, have enough meat that you have ready to go throughout the day, or else this will be a really tough strategy to stick to.
And the studies do show that high protein satiates you significantly in comparison to carbohydrates and fats, especially or maybe primarily in the first 6 months. So in the short term, it brings your appetite down. Why is that a good thing? Well, you're trying to get leaner. It's difficult to do that when your appetite is raging. Well, eat high protein and watch what happens. By the way, back to what you're saying, Adam, it's very hard to find protein unless you prep it. So let's just imagine there's a woman that was aiming for 135 grams of protein. 135 grams of protein is a lot of protein for, let's say, a 140-pound female, 130-pound female. For a 180-pound guy, it's still low. So let me just paint the context here. But 135 grams of protein or 140 grams, that's 45 to 50 grams of protein per meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If you don't prep lunch, go find 45 grams of protein. You're going to have to go to Chipotle, salad, 3 scoops of chicken, extra. Like
Getting it from whole food sources, it's going to be real difficult.
It's actually quite difficult. And again, it results in more muscle. It also helps with insulin sensitivity or blood sugar. And the reason why this is important for this particular topic is when blood sugar levels are up and down, what you tend to have besides mood changes are cravings. And so this is really good for that. By the way, studies will show a high protein breakfast alone, regardless of the way you eat throughout the day, causes blood sugar levels to be more stable throughout the day. That's how powerful this particular effect is. So take your body weight, grams of protein, divide it up between breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and prep your meals. Great strategy right there. Next up, don't eat past 5 p.m. Now, there's no magic to the time.
You just make bad decisions.
Yeah. With this episode, we're going to give away the RGB bundle to someone. If you want to enter to win, leave a comment below this video in the first 24 hours that we drop it. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on notifications. If you win, we'll let you know in the comment section. We also have a massive promotion for this episode. We have a summer starter bundle, a summer shredded bundle, a summer strong bundle, or you can get all of them, all massively discounted. Go check them out, mapsjune.com. Back to the show.
There is a little bit of magic here. I love that you picked this as a tip because this was something as a trainer, early trainer, I used to scoff at this. Oh, there's no science to support this. If you eat the same amount of calories in the day,
totals up the same.
And what a disservice I did to my early clients by shitting on a piece of advice like this that I find extremely valuable. In fact, I bet you most people listening right now that want to lean out a little bit, if they just took this advice alone, would lean out by itself.
Totally.
Because most people, past 5 p.m. is when they make those decisions.
That's right.
It's when they eat the ice cream, the pie, the candy snacks. Yes, the chips, the dip, the popcorn, you name it. This is when it happens. It's typically post dinner. And so if you just aim to have your dinner by 5 or 6 p.m. and then shut it down beyond that, it's crazy how good you do.
And then too, like it really helps you to process the food, digest it all the way through. So you're going in, it doesn't impede on your sleep, which is a huge one for me.
That's right, because so it's an easy way to control calories because it's a hard stop. It's what tends to help people in the real world. Now I know the studies, Adam, right? If you do the same calories, same macros, blah blah blah, everything's the same, it doesn't matter. That's what the data shows. It actually doesn't matter. Right. Eat it, throughout the day, eat it, cut it off at 5 p.m., doesn't make a difference. But in the real world, that's not how things work. In the real world, everyday people, like hard stops or black and white rules in the short term are really effective. Now in the long term, you got to be it's more complicated, right? Yeah. There's more behavior change. There's more relationship with food. But if I was telling someone for 3 months or 2 months,
you can get rid of some flexibility.
It's very black and white. Just don't eat past 5 p.m. Well, it's going to cut your calories. It's going to reduce it's going to cut out the times of the day when you tend to screw up. You tend to meal prep more for breakfast and lunch than you do for dinner. Dinner's the meal that you tend to go, or past dinner is when you tend to, again, make those decisions. And then sleep is a big one, Justin. The reason why I would say don't eat past 5 p.m. versus start eating at noon, let's say they're both, they're both time restricted, is because not eating past 5 p.m. is going to probably improve your sleep. And you're going to get better hormone production as a result, growth hormone production.
That's where the magic is.
Absolutely.
Well, and let's be honest, this episode is about this, right? Very straightforward, practical, easy advice that people can apply so they can get lean for summer. It is not like we normally do, which is talking about all the nuances of training and metabolism and all that stuff like that. This is very practical. Here's a good strategy for most people. Short term, do follow these things.
Check out off your boxes.
Yeah, follow these things and be consistent with it. And I promise you, most people listening will see a huge difference.
In 30 to 60 days, you'll see a big difference.
Yes.
Next up, drink a lot of water, half a gallon to a gallon a day. The effects that this has on your aesthetics is pronounced. Your skin will look different in a few days of doing this. It will look younger. You'll have less wrinkles. You'll look a lot better. And again, we're talking about summer. We're talking about looking better, right? The aesthetics. Water does this. It also probably helps with fat loss, not necessarily because there's some magical thing about drinking all this water, although there are studies that suggest there may be an enhanced fat loss effect. I don't necessarily agree with them, but I'll say there might be something happening there. I'm open to it. But the reason why I have seen better fat loss with my clients who do this is because when they drink a lot of water, they drink a lot of less of other stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
They don't drink
They don't
sodas
drink the
and
calories
juices
quite as much.
That's
Exactly. Yeah. And it's too, I mean, the more hydrated you are, the more energy you feel.
Right.
Because you're low calorie now, because you're trying to cut down. And so it actually helps to kind of keep up, if you're feeling fatigued, it keeps your energy levels up a bit higher.
And if you're busy sipping on water all day, you're less likely to be snacking on food all day long. And so I find that just having a goal of a gallon or whatever it may be and looking at it and knowing that I have to chip away at all day keeps me from getting distracted and grabbing handfuls of chips and M&Ms and snacks. So it's like, I think it's a great strategy just to keep clients from grazing, not to mention all the benefits of water.
Also, and this is just a little side note, which I think is funny, when I had clients do this, especially initially, like the first 30 days or so, this is back in the day when we first got those body bugs that would track people's activity, their steps would go up. Why? Because they get up to go to the bathroom more, which is funny. Yeah. But I mean, did that contribute to some fat loss? Probably a little bit. Now I'm not saying drinking more water so you pee more, but when it comes to the skin effects and the effects on behavior around eating, that is for sure. By the way, this is a long-term suggestion. A lot of these are kind of short-term-ish. This one is like, always do this. There's just tremendous benefit to doing this. Lastly, here's a big one. Avoid foods that cause any digestive distress, or to put it differently, choose foods that you know are super easy for you to
digestible.
digest. Okay? You want to talk about messing up your aesthetics because you're going to go to the beach? Eat something that gives you bloat, that messes with your gut. This happens.
It's a quick recipe to look like you gained 5 pounds of fat overnight.
Easy. Yeah. Very easy. This was especially
my bloat, baby.
This was especially true for a lot of my female clients that were relatively lean. They were 20% body fat, which is pretty lean. And if they ate something that messed up their belly, they'd be like, "Oh my God, I look like I gained 5 pounds of body fat." And so I would recommend them leading up to going to the beach or something like that, like stick to easily digestible foods, which typically look like rice, meat, well-cooked vegetables, like very basic, kind of easy to digest foods. By the way, eating foods that give you a little bit of digestive distress, not stuff that really messes you up, but stuff that causes a little bit of that, it does cause more inflammation overall. So you're more likely to look puffy and not as healthy.
Many times these are the most addictive foods too. So there's that part of it also, is avoiding these types of foods that make you want to binge and eat more. So I think that's a great strategy for that.
And here's the other thing too, and we saw this with the CGMs, right? The continual glucose monitors. What was interesting about some of the CGM data when those started becoming real popular is you would see these like strange non-carbohydrate containing foods causing spikes in blood sugar. Yeah. Like, why is an avocado causing Mrs. Johnson to have a spike in blood sugar? It made no sense.
Histamine response or something.
Exactly. Until you realized her body had an intolerance to the avocado. So although it didn't have carbohydrates, it did cause this kind of mild systemic immune reaction, which will cause a release of sugar from the liver. This also causes cortisol to spike. And you know what high cortisol all day long does besides make you feel like crap? It gets rid of muscle, and it tends to promote fat storage, especially
the opposite of what you want,
especially around the belly. All right, let's get to the workout portion here. So let's talk about how to work out best for the summer. Let's talk about the newbie, okay? Because a lot of people might be listening to this that haven't been consistent for a while. They just started training. They're like, hey, I'm going to start working out. And one of the biggest mistakes they make is they go all in. They go super hard right out the gates. Yeah. This will not only not get you results, it'll cause worse results. It'll increase cravings. You won't build muscle. And if you push yourself too hard and cause too much stress, your body actually will try to hold on to more body fat. In fact, when you look at studies on high stress individuals, and stress can be lots of different things, but it can also be working out beyond what is appropriate for your body. High stress individuals under a calorie deficit lose half as much body fat and twice as much muscle. So you need to train appropriately. So if you're a newbie, A beginner program is going to give you better results than an advanced program will give you.
Listen, no matter what level you're at, the goal is always to do as little as possible to elicit the most amount of change. And if you are a newbie, that means running like a starter, very basic program with not a lot of volume, not a lot of intensity. That's all it's going to take to make change and to see progress. If you're more intermediate, you can handle a little bit more. If you're more advanced, then you can handle a little more. So it doesn't matter at where you're at. The goal is always to do as little as possible to elicit the most amount of change.
That's right. It'll get you the best results too. So sometimes when people hear us communicate this, they think, oh, they want to prevent injury.
No.
Yes,
it's the fastest way.
It's right. Yes, it'll help prevent injury. Yes, it's safer for you. But also, this is how you get the fastest results.
Yes.
You'll get slower results by overdoing it. So programs that like we offer for people in this scenario will be like MAPS Starter, MAPS 15. If you're just getting started, those programs get you far better results.
The right dose matters.
That's right.
That's it.
It's like medication.
You take the right dose of the training, like for that newbie, paired with the advice we're giving, that person gets the most results that way. You take that person and you throw them on the most advanced program or something high intensity.
Reverse results.
And they won't get nearly the same amount of results. And so it is very important, the dose. The dose is very dependent on the results.
Right. Now, if you're moderate, let's say you have some experience, you've been working out for consistently, let's say for 6 months or something like that. A good strategy, this is now for short-term fat loss, high-intensity interval training can produce some pretty accelerated fat loss in a nice 4-week period, 4 to 6 week period. After that, you start to see the effects wean as the body starts to adapt, and it's not a good long-term strategy, but short-term, high-intensity interval training.
Especially if it's novel. Yeah, it's something that you're not consistently doing already. You've been strength training for a long period of time, and now you're going to interrupt that with like cutting out your rest periods. It has a nice effect to that.
This episode is brought to you by ZBiotics. This is the only pre-alcohol drink that actually works. Go check them out. Go to zbiotics.com/mindpump25. Use the code mindpump25 and get 15% off. Back to the show. By the way, there's a more effective way to do it and a less effective way to do it. Now, the HIIT training is HIIT training, right? So you can get on a treadmill and sprint and walk. That's HIIT. But if you do it with weights and you do it properly with good programming, you'll get a little bit of the muscle building effect. You'll get, and it's
definitely muscle preserving effect.
Yes. So yes, I'm glad you said that. Now, it's not just pick 4 exercises and do them in a row. Workout programming does matter. Which exercises you pick will make a difference in terms of the kind of results you're going to get.
I think the key to this is that you're somebody who has enough experience that you're not the beginner group, but that high intensity interval training or say like unilateral work would be novel. And it's that novel stimulus that's going to give you that extra boost in the short term. So I think that's the key to the person that would go in this direction is you're not the beginner, you've been training consistently for a while, but doing something like HIIT is like, oh, I haven't really done that either ever or not reading anytime recent. So you're going to get that person. Or maybe another option for this person is like unilateral training. If you're not somebody who consistently does that, you consistently train, but you haven't done a program just on unilateral work, there's another novel stimulus. So the idea here is taking somebody who's trained before and then creating some sort of novel stimulus in this short period of time.
Yeah, unilateral training is great. So that's where you're training like one arm or one leg at a time. And what this does is this builds symmetry and balance, which really does contribute a lot to your aesthetics. So this is like instead of doing, squats, traditional squats, it would be one-legged exercises, right? Instead of deadlifts, it's one-legged deadlifts. Instead of, bench press, it's one arm type stuff, right? Unilateral training does have a tremendous amount of value. There's a correctional exercise component here. As trainers, we love unilateral training because it balanced out our clients and prevented injuries. But what we see on DEXA scans is the right arm or left arm or right leg, the left leg or glute or lat or whatever, they actually naturally start to balance out. So you'll see more muscle growth in the area that requires it, creating kind of this aesthetic look. So, and MAP Symmetry would be the program that we have that is like that. Now, if you're advanced and you're not overtrained and you're rested, you feel good, this is when you can get after it. This is when you can up the intensity in the short term. failure training can produce some really rapid strength and muscle gain, especially if you do it properly and you alternate it with, let's say with something lower intensity.
You need the prerequisites for this, but definitely is effective.
Well, this would be an example of, and Sal, you've said this several times recently on the show, which is 90% of your training should be in this kind of moderate type of intensity. And then you have 10% of these sprints.
Yep.
This would be an example of where this is somebody who consistently trains. You consistently train in the moderate group. You've got a nice cruise that you're always doing, seeing nice results, progress. You're consistent with your training. But now it's like time to ramp it up. And here's your 10% of like where this is where we really get out.
Right. So this is like, again, you've been working out for a year and you've been smart about it. You haven't hurt yourself. You feel good. I think I can go after it for a couple months. Let's see what happens. Anabolic Advanced would be one of our programs that's along those lines. And then the other thing you could do in your advanced is really change up your lifts. So if you have a good handle on the basics, squats and deadlifts and presses and overhead presses, this is when you can start to do high pulls, snatch grip deadlifts, exercises that are different, that challenge your body differently.
Map Strong.
That will develop. Map Strong is a great program.
Yeah.
For that.
And that's super novel too, because the way we open it up in first phase.
Yeah.
How often do people train in the 20 rep range? So if you're somebody who's never done something like that, that's a novel stimulus. There's different exercises in that. What a great way to get a novel stimulus.
Right. By the way, what we did because of this episode is we put together packages of our programs that are perfect for these individuals. We have one that's called the starter pack, which has the MAPS starter, MAPS 15, and there's some guides for nutrition. Then we have the summer shredded pack, which is your HIIT training, also has your unilateral training with MAPS symmetry. And then we have the strong pack, which is MAPS Anabolic Advanced, MAPS Strong. By the way, all of them on sale, tremendous discounts, and you can also get all three for a huge, huge sale and discount. It's for this episode only. If you're interested, go to mapsjune.com. All right, I know you liked that episode. If you did, check this one out. One of the keys to fat loss is protein. It's true. If you're not eating a high protein diet, you're not going to burn as much body fat as you can. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about the smartest ways to use protein for fat burn and to build muscle. You got to watch this.
I wish I understood this earlier in my career. I think it was probably almost 10 years in when I started to just focus on this with clients.
I knew it was important,
yeah,
but I don't know how important.
Yeah, I knew it was important, but I also didn't